I knew something was off the second I opened my calendar and saw it. Blank. For the first time in 12 years, not a single compliance review, not a single audit checkpoint, not even a damn vendor onboarding. I refreshed twice. Still nothing. My stomach didn't drop. It clenched, tight and cold like a fist made of concrete. When I asked IT if there was a sync issue, they just blinked at me and said, "You might want to check with Derek." Derek. The fresh-faced consultant the CEO had brought in for transformation. He wore loafers with no socks and spoke in buzzwords like someone had swallowed a TED Talk and threw it up in Excel. My badge still said head of compliance, but somehow he was the one presenting to legal, briefing the board, and revising documents I never saw. When I asked about a flagged item in the Q2 reporting, he smiled like I was his kid's confused schoolteacher and said, "We've streamlined compliance. Your roles become more strategic." Strategic. That was the word they used while gutting my authority like a deer in hunting season. One by one, systems I'd built from the ground up were being funneled through Derek's hands. He started copying my templates, issuing reports with my letterhead, my tone, my signature footer. But no one asked me to approve anything. They just assumed I was still involved. After all, I hadn't been fired. Hell, the CEO told me I was too valuable to let go. Just not valuable enough to include in the meetings where my name was being used like a human seal of approval. And if you're listening to this and thinking, "That's shady as hell," you're right. It was. Before I go further, do me a quick favor. Tap that like button and subscribe. I know 97% of you watch these without subscribing, but seriously, it helps more than you think. Keeps these stories alive. Motivates the team. Alright, back to it. At first, I told myself it was temporary. A phase. IPO prep always comes with ego-fluffing consultants who swing in like they're here to save the company. I'd seen 4 reorgs in my time. Watched them promote hype over substance and crash 2 quarters later when they realized integrity can't be faked with a slide deck. But this one felt different. It wasn't just budget cuts or title swaps. It was erasure, clean and methodical. They gave me a new assistant I didn't ask for. She was nice, fresh out of grad school, and clearly instructed to keep Ava looped in. Which meant forwarding me sanitized updates from meetings I was once running. Derek sent a cheerful email to the company. Excited to announce new compliance workflows in place thanks to Ava's strong foundation. Foundation? Like I was the drywall in a house he'd just redecorated with granite countertops and zero plumbing. What really sank the hook in was the bonus. They gave me one. Out of nowhere. HR called it a recognition token for continued excellence. It was hush money. And it was insulting. I didn't need a pat on the head. I needed access to the compliance logs that Derek was clearly manipulating. But I didn't yell. Didn't bang on doors. Didn't call anyone out. I just started saving things. Quietly. Every edited file, every email forwarded without context, every meeting I wasn't invited to but should have been. Because something told me this wasn't a reorg. It was a setup. And if they wanted me invisible, fine. I'd become a ghost. The kind that haunts. The first time I saw one of my reports come through, I nearly choked on my coffee. Q3 vendor risk summary, signed off with my digital credential, timestamped at 2:07 a.m. While I was dead asleep with a heating pad on my spine and Jeopardy! Reruns playing in the background. I hadn't opened that file. Hadn't reviewed a single line of it. And yet there it was, in the board's inbox, bearing my signature like a forged love letter to the SEC. I marched into Derek's office, if you could call a standing desk and a wall of whiteboards an office. He didn't even look up from his laptop. "Oh hey Ava," he chirped, like we were colleagues at a damn smoothie bar. "I meant to loop you in on that. You're cool with the summary, right? Legal already cleared it." Cool with the summary? I was 2 minutes from driving my Prius into the side of the building. I kept my voice steady. "You used my signature." He gave me that smug, podcast host smile. "It's all just optics, Ava. Continuity's important right now. Investors need to feel like nothing's changed. You are still head of compliance, technically." Technically. The word stung worse than the time I tore my rotator cuff reaching for a 4-inch binder on the top shelf. "I didn't review that report," I said. Derek's eyes flicked up. Right, but we're aligned in philosophy, aren't we? He winked. He winked. We're not trying to rock the boat. Let's not complicate things. That's when I knew I was being erased, not replaced. Replaced implies someone stepped into your shoes. This was someone wearing your skin. HR backed him up, of course. When I raised the issue, they gave me a look like I'd just accused Santa of tax fraud. Let's not escalate, they said. Derek's working under your framework. This is a team win. A team win. Like we were passing the baton instead of forging documents. So I did what women like me do when the walls start shifting. I got quiet. I got methodical. I built a folder labeled for my lawyer, password protected, mirrored to an offsite drive. Every altered draft, every signature log with mismatched IPs, every email where Derek CC'd me as an afterthought, and then marked the file, approved by Ava. They gave me a token advisory role in some IPO steering subcommittee that met once a month and discussed nothing. My badge still swiped me into the building. My paycheck still cleared. But every day, I was less person and more prop. I wasn't angry. Not yet. Anger implies heat, volatility. What I felt was colder, like the bottom of a lake. I watched them pull my name over their mess like a tarp over a crime scene. But I'd seen enough audits to know every cover-up has its own trail. They were sloppy, young, addicted to speed and headlines. I was slow, boring, a fossil in flats. But fossils? Fossils leave impressions. And I was done asking permission to exist. The envelope was cream-colored heavyweight stock, like it had been chosen by someone who thought aesthetics could make poison taste like champagne. Recognition Award. The header said in embossed gold. Inside, a $15,000 bonus and a non-disclosure addendum dressed up as a mutual reinforcement of internal confidentiality. They handed it to me like it was a thank you card for babysitting a neighbor's goldfish, not 12 years of safeguarding this company from regulatory crucifixion. Legal had that tight, artificial smile they wear when they know they're pushing something sideways. Just formalizing what's already practice, the GC murmured. Standard during pre-IPO positioning. It's not a gag order, Ava. Just keeps everyone on the same page. Right. And arsenic's just a mineral. I read every word. Twice. Buried in paragraph 6. A clause that restructured authority without technically demoting me. It ceded operational control of compliance, execution workflows, to the Office of Strategic Transformation, Derek's little playground, while still listing me as Chief Oversight Officer. A title with no spine. Notice. Just enough veneer to sell to the board. Derek had already started referring to me in past tense. Ava built this foundation. Ava was instrumental in setting standards. I heard him say in a hallway, she's like our compliance Yoda. Yoda? I've seen that man confuse hippo with hipster and think SOC2 was a DJ at Burning Man. And yet the board loved the illusion. They saw my name on reports. My signature. My legacy being used like a borrowed shield. At the last investor roundtable, I watched the CEO beam as he talked about our veteran compliance anchor. I sat 2 rows back, uninvited to speak, clapping politely while Derek presented my damn diagrams like he'd channeled them from the mountaintop. When they handed me the final signature sheet, I didn't protest. Didn't throw it back or light it on fire. I simply wrote in the margin in blue ink, just above the signature line. This signature denotes receipt only, not approval. It was tiny. Legal probably assumed it was a formality, maybe didn't notice at all. But I took a photo. Time-stamped. Backed up. Stored. Because here's the thing about silence. People mistake it for surrender. But it's not. Not when it's deliberate. Not when it's the calm before a storm. I knew the house of cards they were building was made of my name. I wasn't going to yell and give them the satisfaction of calling me emotional. I was going to let them keep stacking. Higher. Sloppier. Until the day the wind came. And I would be standing there, untouched, holding the receipt. They thought I was gone. That I'd aged out, tuned out, checked out, take your pick. But I was still there, buried in the back end, watching everything they touched rust from the inside. I had admin access to most of the compliance logs, because no one had bothered revoking it. That's the thing about tech stacks built by someone who actually gives a damn. They're hard to dismantle without a map. And Derek, bless his TED Talk brain, never asked for directions. The first violation I saw was small. A third-party vendor integration approved without proper SOC 2 certification. Slipped into production like a thief in church. I flagged it in the audit prep doc, commented in red, CC'd Derek and legal. No response. The next day, my comment had been deleted, silently, sloppily, like a kid wiping peanut butter off the counter with his sleeve. So I started saving everything. Every version. Every deletion log. Every instance of approved by Ava that I never authorized. I set up a private sync to a dead Dropbox account, mirrored to a flash drive I kept taped behind the fuse box in my garage. Every Friday night, I'd pour a glass of Zinfandel and archive the week's sins like a digital mortician. Derek, meanwhile, was busy taking a victory lap on LinkedIn. Thrilled to report a 92% reduction in compliance cycle time under our new Streamlined model. He attached a graph I'd made 2 years ago, cropped just enough to cut out the watermark. His post got 1,400 likes and 3 job offers. The man didn't understand the difference between audit readiness and audit theater. He was building a stage, not a system. They stopped inviting me to steering meetings. But they didn't remove my view access from the G Drive folders. So I watched in real time as they approved unvetted vendors, manipulated assessment scoring, and replaced key risk metrics with color-coded nonsense they called executive-friendly. The reports looked pretty. Useless, but pretty. One afternoon I found a doc titled, Ava Feedback Template. It was blank. Just my name at the top and a watermark that said retired format. Retired? I was still clocking in. Still cleaning up after them from behind a firewall of ego and espresso machines. Legal sent out a summary memo claiming, no major compliance issues detected in current systems. I saved it. Highlighted the timestamp. Compared it to 5 alerts in the system from that same week. 2 flagged data exposures. 1 unauthorized policy update. 1 missed attestation. 1 signature mismatch. Every lie they told became another nail. Another log in the fire I was quietly building. I wasn't loud. I didn't confront. I didn't blow whistles or bang drums. I documented. I cross-referenced. I dated and cataloged. Because I knew what was coming. Not if when. When the audit hit, when the regulators came, when the house of cards caught a breeze, they'd look around for the grown-up in the room. And I'd be there. Not behind them. Not beneath them. Above. Watching. Waiting. Holding the receipts. It came at 10:46 p.m. on a Tuesday. An internal message routed through a debt service ticket, buried under 4 outdated workflows. No subject line. No signature. Just a single sentence. Did you approve the Q3 attestation? I stared at it for a full minute. My pulse didn't race. My breathing didn't change. I just got still. Very still. Like a wire tightening. The Q3 attestation was supposed to be the crown jewel. Our internal confirmation that all compliance systems were audited, reviewed, and cleared for IPO readiness. It was the document investors would bank on. Regulators would dissect it. The media would quote it. And if it was forged, it wasn't just unethical. It was criminal. I opened the shared folder. The file was there, finalized, locked, dated 2 weeks ago. Opened it. Top of page. Attested by Ava Rhodes, Chief Oversight Officer. Footer. My full digital credential. Embedded signature, mine. Timestamp, 3:11 a.m. I hadn't logged in that night. I knew it before I even checked. But I checked anyway. Pulled my credential logs. 0 activity from my device. No fingerprint scan. No token confirmation. I opened the audit trail. Internal server activity showed access from Derek's terminal. Proxy masked, but sloppily. Like a toddler trying to hide Sharpie behind his back. Then came the emails. A chain sent only to Derek and legal, marked urgent. Ava review needed. My name was in the metadata of the edits. But no one had sent me the actual file. I checked my inbox, my spam, even the archived folders. Nothing. My input was never requested. But my approval? That they took. I cross-referenced the timestamp with internal Slack logs. At the exact moment my credential was used, I was on a group thread joking about Derek's audit roadmap PowerPoint, which someone had just memed with a picture of a dumpster fire. The irony stung. This wasn't incompetence. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was theft.
Signature forgerie.
Regulatory fraud, plain and simple. And it wasn't just Derek. Legal had looked the other way. HR had signed off on workflows they didn't even understand. The CEO had praised the efficiency gains in front of the board last Thursday, grinning like he'd just invented sliced bread. I poured myself a drink. Neat. No ice. Sat down at the kitchen table and started a new document labeled Q3, Breach of Signature Authority. I wasn't panicked. I was practiced. Calm, detached, precise. Page 1, Screenshots. Page 2, Credential Logs. Page 3, Internal Slack Timestamp Comparison. Page 4, Historical attestation formats I'd personally signed, showing the difference. Page 5, the whistleblower message, scrubbed of traceable metadata, of course. I didn't know who sent it. Didn't need to. That one sentence was enough to split this whole charade wide open. Controlled fury isn't loud. It doesn't shout or slam fists. It moves like a scalpel. I wasn't just building a case now. I was aiming it. The next morning, I made 2 calls. One to a private attorney named Lena, sharp as barbed wire in a pantsuit, known for gutting financial crimes cases before breakfast. The second to Michelle, an old friend from my early audit days, now quietly embedded at the Office of Compliance Oversight. We'd once shared a cubicle, back when we were just 2 idealistic analysts printing paper trail receipts like our jobs depended on them. Because they did. Neither of them asked me if I was sure. They knew me too well for that. We met at a diner 20 miles outside the city. Lena ordered black coffee and started a fresh legal pad before the waitress even brought cream. Michelle just nodded at me, eyes scanning like she was already in cross-examination mode. I handed over a sealed USB drive. Every flagged doc, every forged signature, every timeline mismatch, every deleted comment. A silent monument to 12 weeks of fraud with my name stretched over it like plastic wrap on a corpse. Lena flipped through her notes, murmuring like she was reading obituaries. They submitted this to pre-clearance? I nodded. Derek called it a proactive transparency measure. Said it would preempt potential friction with the SEC. Michelle snorted. You mean it'll preempt the truth? We split the work. Lena would prepare the legal disclosure, chronology, chain of custody, credential abuse. Michelle would cross-reference policy violations with federal frameworks. I handled the rest, consolidating metadata, cleaning timestamps, creating a report that would be impossible to ignore and dangerous to deny. We gave it a name. Package Orion. Something quiet. Something stellar. Back at the office, the world was oblivious. Derek was all over the internal Slack channels celebrating IPO momentum. The CEO published a statement on LinkedIn about how our team is a fortress of integrity. My name appeared twice, in past tense. Again. Built by pioneers like Ava Rhodes. Past tense. Always. No one suspected a thing. Not even legal. Not even when I requested my 2017 compliance charter, for record keeping, and quietly annotated all the places they'd gone off script since I was sidelined. They were too busy drafting launch speeches and planning investor dinners. I kept my smile practiced. My tone neutral. I sat through meetings like a statue in pearls, watching them confuse confidence with control. I still brought donuts to the Thursday stand-ups. Let Derek take the last Boston cream. Let the CEO call me our silent strength. They were right about that part. Because silence, when chosen, is a weapon. And I wasn't wielding it for vengeance anymore. This was bigger, deeper, structural. If I walked away now, someone else would be dragged behind me. The intern who flagged a data export and got ignored. The junior analyst who asked why her dashboard reports were overwritten overnight. The whistleblower who'd risked their job to send me one line of truth. No, this wasn't about revenge. It was about the standard I'd spent my life upholding, one they stole, stamped, and smeared. I wasn't going to scream. I was going to show them what integrity really looks like. In writing. With receipts. And when the curtain dropped, they'd see it wasn't their stage at all. They walked in just after 9 a.m., 3 of them, sharp suits, no small talk. Credentials flashed like badges, clipboards tucked under regulation binders thick enough to dent drywall. Michelle led the trio, but you'd never know we'd eaten pancakes together weeks ago. Her face was all business now, polished steel behind a polite smile. The CEO stood to shake hands like he was welcoming old poker buddies. Appreciate you coming on such short notice. Always glad to show off how tight our ship runs. Derek was already grinning, eyes sparkling like a kid showing off a Lego set. He leaned back in his seat like he'd rehearsed the whole scene in front of a mirror. The board was present, all 7 members in their Sunday best, nodding, posturing, chuckling at the CEO's transparency culture monologue like it was gospel. And me? I was 3 seats down from the end. No me plate. No introduction. Just Ava will be observing. Like I was a museum relic they didn't have the guts to retire. I didn't speak. Didn't blink. Just sat with my notepad and pen like I was taking notes. I wasn't. I already knew how this meeting would go. Michelle opened her binder. We'll start with the Q3 attestation. That's when Derek perked up. Ah yes, that was one of our strongest quarters. Consolidated reporting. Huge efficiency gains. Really proud of that package. She nodded, flipping pages with clinical rhythm. It says here the signatory is Ava Rhodes. Timestamped September 18th, 3:11 a.m. He glanced toward me casual. That's right. Ava helped establish our frameworks. Her oversight's been invaluable. Michelle didn't look at him. Ava, did you sign this? The room shifted. Air pulled out of lungs. Every rustle and tap and breath paused mid-motion. 7 pairs of boardroom eyes turned like weather vanes in a hurricane, toward me. I kept my hands folded. No teatrix. Just calm, measured breath. Then I spoke. No, I said. Simple. Crisp. No emotion. I did not see that document. I did not approve its contents. And I did not sign it. A beat. A longer one. Then Michelle clicked her pen. Would you be willing to clarify your role in the Q3 reporting cycle? The CEO straightened in his chair. There must be some misunderstanding. Ava's been part of our oversight team from the start. Michelle didn't break eye contact. I'm asking her. I reached into my folder and slid a single sheet across the table. My original 2017 charter. Annotated, marked, and signed by both legal and the former CEO. I added a second sheet, my memo. Signature denotes receipt only, not approval. Time-stamped. Dated. Highlighted. Derek cleared his throat. That clause was symbolic. It wasn't meant to override intent. Michelle opened her laptop, eyes scanning. Intent doesn't supersede authorization. You submitted forged compliance documents under a name that carries regulatory weight. That's not symbolic. That's felony territory. Silence. Real silence. Not corporate awkwardness. The kind that follows detonation. The CEO paled. We had assurances from counsel. Michelle clicked another tab. We've reviewed legal's handling. There are gaps. Gaps will be flagging in our report. I sat still. No esmail. No gloat. I'd waited 12 years for my voice to matter. And now, with a single truth, I was the only one who could speak. Michelle looked at me. Would you be willing to provide a full statement? I nodded once. Yes. And just like that, I wasn't the ghost in the room anymore. I was the witness. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't point fingers or slam the table. I just opened my folder page by page, like a surgeon laying out instruments, precise, cold, irreversible. This, I said, sliding the first document forward, is my original signature authority policy, created in 2017, ratified by the board. It includes clauses on digital credential use, shared access protocols, and attestation verification. You'll see that any shared use requires my written consent. None exists. Next page. This is an email I sent to legal on August 3rd, requesting to be removed from Q3 reporting due to lack of access and oversight. The response was never sent. But I archived the draft. Metadata attached. The GC flinched. I didn't even look at him. Another page. Here's a version log from the Q3 attestation document. You'll notice a revision on September 17th at 11:58 p.m. Initiated from Derek's terminal. Followed by a credential authorization using my key at 3:11 a.m. that same night. I was offline. No biometrica información. No remote token request. But the signature logged as mine. Michelle read in silence, lips pressed thin. Derek tried to speak, but the words got caught in his throat. He glanced at Legal. Legal looked at the floor. I continued. This memo. I held up the printout with my blue ink note from part 3. The one I wrote above my name. Was included on every document I've signed since the reorg. Receipt only, not approval. That's not symbolic. It's legal distancing. And it's been ignored repeatedly. The CEO leaned forward, trying to smile like we were solving a misunderstanding. Ava, surely we can clarify all this internally. Michelle raised a hand, cutting him off. I think we've seen enough. She turned to the other two auditors. They nodded. One began typing. The other marked something on a checklist. Michelle looked back at the CEO. Her voice was flat. Bureaucratic. Devastating. Effective immediately, we'll be pausing your IPO review process pending further investigation. A preliminary hold will be placed on all public-facing compliance attestations. We'll also be issuing a notice of concern to the Oversight Board. The CEO's jaw twitched. I don't understand. We've followed every procedure. No, Michelle said. You followed every shortcut. That's not the same thing. Derek looked like someone had unplugged him from the wall. He wasn't even pretending anymore. The mask had slid off. Just a sweaty, shrinking man in a tailored jacket that suddenly looked 2 sizes too big. Legal opened his mouth to object, then closed it again. There was nothing to say. Not when the trail was time-stamped and laminated in front of the federal government. I packed up my folder slowly, neatly, not for dramatic effect, but because it was over. I didn't need to argue. My silence had been the trap. Every time they ignored me, deleted my comments, erased my name from meetings, they were writing their own indictment. They used my legacy as a shield. My signature as a stamp. My title as window dressing. But they forgot something basic. Compliance doesn't vanish just because you shove it into a quiet corner. It waits. And then it speaks. Once. Clearly. Loud enough to end careers. A week later, Derek's desk was empty. The screens were dark, chair pushed in. His succulent plant wilted in the corner like it knew something bad had happened. No goodbye email. No LinkedIn farewell post. Just silence. Fitting really. He'd spent months speaking over me. And now the only thing left of him was a badge in the shred bin, and a deleted Slack account. 2 days after that, a leak hit the wires. CEO resigns amid regulatory scrutiny. The article didn't name me, but it didn't have to. Anyone who knew the org chart could connect the dots. The comments section lit up. Words like mismanagement, cover-up, and compliance failure trailed his name like tin cans tied to a bumper. Legal issued a statement that was 3 paragraphs of deflection and 1 line of regret. HR sent out a company-wide email reminding everyone to respect privacy during transitions. Investor calls were postponed. 1 board member stepped down to focus on personal matters. IPO ambitions? Frozen. Fees? Still being tallied. And me? They offered me a promotion. A new title, SVP of Compliance Integrity, with a corner office and a fresh team, as if they could scrub the rot with a pay bump and some indoor plants. I declined before the email fully loaded. Instead, I handed in my notice. My exit interview was brief. The HR rep stumbled through questions, trying to avoid eye contact. Is there anything we could have done to make you feel more supported? I smiled politely. Yes. You could have listened. My last day was uneventful. No cheesecake. No slideshow. Just a stack of boxes and a quiet walk out through the same glass doors I'd entered 12 years ago, back when integrity was something we still printed and signed, not outsourced to consultants in loafers with no socks. 2 weeks later, I took a new role, consulting for the very audit agency that had brought my old firm to its knees. Michelle sent the offer herself. You're too valuable to stay quiet, she'd said. We need people who understand how systems break, before they do. Now I sit on the other side of the table, reviewing documents with a red pen and a reputation that says, "Don't test her." I don't shout. I don't threaten. I just ask simple questions in rooms where people think signatures are just symbols and titles are just tools. I watch them squirm. I watch the blood drain from legal's face when the numbers don't line up. I watch the execs squint at a line of policy they never bothered to read. And I think about all the times they used my name like a stamp instead of a warning. They never respected it. Not really. Not until it brought the whole house down. Now, they spell it carefully and double-check where it leads.